High school recruiting is about to heat up, and it could start this weekend.
In a world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the book, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened, because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off, and you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's episode 42. 42 of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Five, and we're ready to rock and roll. We're going to talk big time high school recruiting visit schedule for this weekend and for the rest of the month, and then into June. We're going to talk a little bit about all that. Got a surprise commitment, new player added that could be some foreshadowing in the future. And then we're going to talk about what's going on in the basketball portal and how we finish off this roster. But before we do that, we got to give a shout out to our boy, Ford Stokes. Look, are you really getting the help that you need with your investments, your retirement, your nest egg that you've been working so hard on? Look, if you're not 100% sure, you need to check out retirementresults.com and Ford Stokes, Auburn guy, financial radio and TV show host, contributor to Forbes.com. Let him give you a 401k analysis for free. That's typically a $1,500 value, and he does it for all the listeners here. Big Auburn guy. You got to give him a shout. You just, if nothing else, just make sure you're checking all your boxes. You're making sure that you've exhausted all options and you've done all your research to make sure you're doing the best that you can do. Check him out, FordStokes.com. You can check them out at activewealth.com, annuity360.net, or now retirementresults.com as well. All right, guys, the portal season for football seems to be over. Okay, it seems like Auburn's roster's set. You could get a surprise with Khalil Jacobs, but he just finished his visit to Ole Miss. He scheduled his visit to Missouri, Alabama. If I had to guess right now, I'd say it's Missouri. Missouri's been trying to find a linebacker since way back into the December portal. So the depth chart makes a lot more sense there than it does in a lot of places. Ole Miss added a bunch of portal linebackers. Alabama's still got some really talented linebackers. Auburn's got their starting 2 or 3 sort of set. But you never know. You never know. Auburn could use him for next year, 2025. He could be the guy, but he would have to probably sit a little bit, play sparingly, learn, and then get better. But at this point in time, I'm not really expecting it. But hey, you never know with the portal. He could pop at, he could pop while we're listening to this show to Auburn. So, but I'm not really expecting that right now. So with the portal ended, your roster's set for 2024. Now all you're doing, you're looking forward to the 2025 class. You're looking forward to the future, and you're going to start building. Auburn's already got a number of commitments, way ahead of where we were last year. You got 10 commitments already. And now is typically when you start to see your official visits. Used to you'd have your official visits, in the season because signing day was in February. And now it's wild that all you did was move back signing day 2 months, and now you're starting to get all your official visits in the summer. And typically a lot of them are all in June. Like it's just action-packed, slammed in June because a lot of kids are making their decision before their final, before their season kicks off and then things like that. So May and June end up being very, very busy months. So Auburn's action is kicking off in a big way this weekend. So you're already already getting into the mode of bringing in some star-studded visitors. And we have a litany of top guys booked throughout the rest of May and into June. This weekend was kind of a surprise because a couple of guys sort of came out of nowhere that they'll be here this weekend. And I think it's cool because there's only 3 and they're all 3 really highly rated, but they'll sort of not be overwhelmed with a bunch of other visitors. You kind of get to focus in on these guys and really roll out the red carpet because all of them are positions of need. So who's visiting this weekend? I think the headliner who kind of came out of nowhere was Andrew. Actually, all these kind of came out of nowhere, but the big one is Andrew Babalola. He is a 5-star offensive tackle. Look, I tried to think about the last real 5-star offensive tackle that was a 5-star when Auburn signed him. You go back and you got Calvin Ashley, who's when he committed was a 5-star. This was back in the Gus era. And I think as people got more eyes on him and he got more evals, his rating sort of dropped. I think as he signed, he was not quite a 5-star. And obviously it didn't work out, Calvin Ashley here. I think you got to go all the way back to maybe Sean Coleman as far as an offensive tackle goes. And when he originally committed, he was only a 3-star. I'll never will forget that recruitment because he started off as a 3-star. People started sort of getting eyes on him. Unbelievably physically built, and then his recruiting rankings skyrocketed. Alabama got in hard after him, and somehow we ended up pulling that one off, and he ended up being an NFL player. So it's been a while. I say all that to say it's been a while. Andrew has already been here one time. He may have been here multiple times, but I know he was here at least a little bit earlier in the year, and there seems to be a lot of interest there from his side. Obviously, we have the interest because, you got a 6'5", 290 or 6'5", 6'6", 295 5-star offensive tackle, the number 15 player in the nation, saying, "Hey, I want to come. I want to come on an official visit." Of course, you're going to be excited about that, and you're going to roll out the red carpet. I don't really know where Auburn stands as far as having a chance, but when you get a visit, you feel like you got a chance because Auburn, you get them in here. Auburn kind of sells itself. So, you never know what happens. You never know what happens. And Jake Thornton's been a really good recruiter. He's got a great class building already. He's got some good prospects that could be, hopefully popping here in the near future. Could this be a guy that you reel in? Who knows? You got a shot at it. You got him in for a visit. And you got a shot at it. So Andrew Babalola, watch out for that name. Big time prospect, number 15 player in the country based off of On3's rankings. Based off their RPM prediction model, it looks like a Kansas State, Oklahoma battle. He is from Kansas. I don't know if there's a connection there with Kansas State. Again, that algorithm's just based off of like visits and stuff, tweets and stuff like that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Kansas State leads, but anytime you can pull a big time lineman from the Midwest, last time we got one from Kansas, he turned out pretty daggum good. So Andrew Babalola, let's watch out for him. This one is interesting, and I'm gonna give a shout out to someone for a cool point that they made on him. I'm probably gonna butcher his name, but it looks like Alsman Chroma. Okay. Alsman Chroma from Leesburg, Georgia, 4-star running back, number 68 player in the country. We need a running back. We need multiple running backs. And this guy is a monster, 6 foot, 215 pounds in high school and he's from Georgia. Anytime you can get a big back from Georgia who's talented, I'm all in. Because those dudes are tough. Those dudes like to get after it. I really like this kid. Okay. Now, here's the thing I was telling you about. Cole Pinkston at On3 is one of the best guys at finding an angle. Okay. He's really good at scoping out an angle on a kid that may be something interesting to watch. What is that angle? Okay. So Georgia obviously has to have a running back. Georgia has to have a running back. They've talked about having 2 running backs, okay? But believe it or not, we've heard of this kid from Ohio, Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson is either scheduled to visit this weekend in Georgia or very shortly, very, very soon, Bo Jackson, who is also a very, very highly rated running back. And I think a lot of recruiting analysts have put him on commit watch to Georgia. So could this be another Julian Lewis type situation, Juju Lewis type situation where Georgia takes a running back and then their number 2 target decides, hey, I don't know that I want to be a 1-2 punch with a guy that's sort of built similar to me, maybe I'll give some other guys a chance. Maybe I'll give some other guys a shot. So if Bo Jackson, it feels weird to say that, but if Bo Jackson commits to Georgia, does that sort of open the door now for Auburn with arguably, I think he would be arguably Auburn's top running back prospect on the board. I think he would be in a perfect world, if you can get him as your number one, I think he would be your number one running back choice. Kid's an absolute beast. Got top end speed, strong, powerful agility. Love his huddle film. Go search his huddle film. If you can figure out how to spell his name, just Google it the best of your ability, and you will be impressed. You'll be impressed. So he comes in this weekend. We get a shot at him. Can you sell him early playing time? You lose Jarquez Hunter. You do have some young guys that are sort of moving up that you're gonna that are gonna take his place. So maybe 100% the snaps aren't going to be there all the way first year, but maybe you can carve out a niche for him similarly to the way you did to Jeremiah Cobb year one. And maybe you can sell that as far and also NIL and things of that nature. So big time running back, and there's going to be multiple running backs coming over the next several weeks. But in an ideal world, Auburn hits it out of the park, hits a home run with him this weekend. Bo Jackson commits to Georgia, and then you got a shot at Alsman. I think that would be the most perfect scenario for Auburn, 100%. So, got to give a shout out to Cole Pinkston for pointing that out. If you're not a subscriber at On3, he does a great job, and he's really good at finding little things like this that help kind of paint the picture of how things can play out. So, definitely give him a shout out. All right, last visitor so far. There could be others pop this weekend as far as visitors, but this is a very interesting prospect as well. Malachi Goodman. He's also an offensive tackle, one that I've heard there's been a lot of chatter, and you kind of wonder where this connection is. He's from New Jersey, actually, but he's coming in for official visit. I think Auburn has a really good shot at this guy. There's multiple kids that Auburn has what I would say a better than average shot at offensive tackle. You got Broderick Scholl. I think you got Malachi Goodman, and then interior, you got guys like Jacoby Ward that's coming in a little bit later for a visit. But there's multiple guys that Auburn's got a really good shot at, and it's almost honestly, it's kind of you're on it, getting into a numbers. You're getting into a numbers issue. Who would have ever thought that with offensive linemen? Because you can only take, I mean, you could possibly take 6 offensive linemen in a class and be okay. Okay. LSU did that last year. You can't do that necessarily every year, but Auburn has to have offensive linemen. You got 4 committed. So technically you only got 2 spots left. I think they'd make room for if you got if Andrew Babaloa, Malachi Goodman, and Jacoby Ward Andrew Babaloa, Malachi Goodman, and Broderick Scholl all wanted to come on board. I think you'd make it work. But you're sort of getting into a numbers game here at offensive line. How fun is that to say? So we'll see how that plays out. But that's one that I think you really want to get to know, Malachi Goodman, because Auburn's going to play hard there. And if they can get him, you're extremely fired up. Number 2, top 300 player in the country, 260th ranked on On3. Just a really good size, 6'5 and a half, 315 pounds. Very similar to Andrew Babaloa. A little bit lower ranked. Could just be, way up there in New Jersey, may not have as many analyst eyes as, other places. But Malachi Goodman. So 3 guys coming in this weekend. Andrew Babaloa, Alsman Croma, Malachi Goodman, all going to get the red carpet treatment. Going to have all the bells and whistles going this weekend. So can you make a move on Alsman? Can you make a move on Malachi? What's the deal with Babalola? It could be a fun weekend. Another thing, Cole Pinkston likes to do is he'll do when you start having these visits, these big visit weekends, he'll do like a live update thread all weekend. So that'd be something to kind of, keep your eye out for. You got to be a member to kind of get access to that. So big time visitors. So that's not the only visitors we have, scheduled for. I told you, the end of May, end of June, you got big visitors. You got the 31st. So I think there's a short dead period, and then then it opens back up. So the 31st, you take the next weekend off. The 31st, you got Broderick Scholl, who's not going to be on commit watch when he comes. You got Caleb Cunningham, 5-star, the number 1 wide receiver on your board. It's going to be a tough pull, but you get him in for a visit. Another big time Cam Coleman body style type wide receiver, and a lot of similar characteristics. Kalen Edwards, I don't know if you remember Kalen Edwards, one of the big defensive linemen you had committed early, decommitted. He's coming back in on an official visit. There's been some positive vibes there that you could possibly add him back into the class. He comes in as well. And then, later on in June, you have Isaiah Gibson, June 10th, who's one of the number 1 pass rushers in the country, one of the top pass rushers in the country, committed to USC, but not a lot of people feel confident that he'll stick with that. He comes in June 10th, but the big headliner visit is Juju Lewis, who comes in June 14th weekend. And they did this. Listen, this is very strategic. Okay. They brought Juju Lewis in. He's coming in on the same weekend that Eric Winters is coming in, who you're targeting. And then you line him up with 4 Auburn commits: Jacaleb Falk, Tyler Lockhart, Devin Williams, Carday Smith. You're surrounding him with Auburn commits and a guy that you possibly could get to pull the trigger in Eric Winters that weekend and just sort of really hype up that visit. I love where Auburn sits with Juju Lewis going into June, and then we get that visit, and then who knows what can happen there. So a lot of big things happening in recruiting, a lot of visits. There could be a lot of surprise guys last minute that get added to these lists. You just got to be paying attention. You got to be subscribed to some site, whether it be On3, 247. You're going to get subscribed so you can be in the loop on stuff like that. But for sure, because there's a lot of big things brewing. All right. Auburn got sort of a surprise addition commitment last night from I guess technically it would be considered a portal addition at defensive back. His name is Antoine Fagans. And I think, like a lot of people, you had to double check, you had to double take, because you're thinking, oh boy, Anquan Fagans may have just committed. You're confusing the two. Who obviously is a big prospect in this 2025 class, who is on, it seems like any minute now, he could go ahead and pop. But the 4-star safety from Thompson, top 150 player in the country, just would be probably the best player in our class once he's hopefully finally added. But one of his older brothers, Antoine, who's played a little bit of big time college football, played at Arkansas State, then he transferred to a D2 school. He's going to come in. I don't think it matters if he's going to be a preferred walk-on, a scholarship, whatever. We got spots. So he could possibly be on scholarship. And his dad mentioned something last night on Twitter that it kind of signified that, hey, Anquan's coming too. So I think that's probably a pretty good sign that Anquan's probably not too far behind. But hey, Hugh mentioned in the portal he was looking to add one more linebacker and one more DB if they were to sort of show up. And maybe this is your DB. Maybe this is the guy that is your defensive back. I think he played safety. He was a safety prospect. He was a 3-star coming out of high school. He signed with, like I said, Arkansas State. Looks like he may have either taken some time off of football or maybe either gone to junior college. I don't 100% know his timeline of his career, but he's going to come back. It says he's listed as a sophomore, so he could have a couple of years to play. Again, we need guys that are in that junior range. We need some bodies in that class, basically, because we're top heavy and bottom heavy. So can't. I mean, if it's nothing else, it's possibly some foreshadowing of some celebration when you add his younger brother, who's a very highly rated athlete, and then you never know what you get out of these guys. I mean, clearly this family is just littered with elite athletes. You got Antoine, who's played college football. You've got Traquan, who was at USC and then ended up going to UCF, and then you got Anquan, who could be possibly the best out of all of them, who's got offers from everywhere in the country. So let's be on the lookout for that. I know he's got an official visit scheduled sometime in the near future as well. Could he go ahead and pull the trigger this summer? I feel like he's just at any moment he could go ahead and pull the trigger. So we'll see how that goes. But Antoine Fagans has joined the 2024 roster for the Auburn Tigers. I'm not sure exactly where he'll start out. Probably safety. He's listed as a safety. He played safety at Arkansas State. Could he be a safety or a nickel? We'll see. Just see how it goes. Get him in here, get in the mix, and get after it. Let's see what happens. And then hopefully your brother joins the crew, and they'll get to play together at least for one season in 2025. So a lot of stuff going on with football, and that's just an example. All right, before we talk the wrapping up this basketball portal, hopefully soon, got to give a shout out to plainscoffee.com. Use coupon code BUTTON for 10% off every single order from now until the end of time. A roast for everyone. It could be as dark as you want. It could be as light as you want. They got it. And if you don't like coffee, they have tea too. Just have it shipped to you. Stop going to shop. Let it be shipped to you. Let them bring you the coffee freshly ground the day before it's shipped, not sitting in a warehouse somewhere getting old and stale. It's going to be fresh and ready to go. Check them out, plainscoffee.com. Use coupon code BUTTON for 10% off. Basketball portal. All right, so we talked Dylan Mitchell. He came in, Texas. What's funny about Dylan Mitchell is he wasn't really known as a shooter. If you look, he barely shot any threes at all. He may not even attempted a three last year. He's an old school power forward. Shoots from like 60% from two, 60% from the field almost. Just banger putbacks, gets a bunch of boards, plays good defense. That's kind of what he's known for. He goes to these NBA combine. He's going through, I think, the NBA combine process, or maybe he already did, and lit it up from three. Just started lighting it up from three. And it kind of opened everybody's eyes like, oh, this guy is not just possibly a backup. This is a dude that could maybe be, he could challenge Chaney for a starting position. Well, those guys typically demand a pretty premium price in NIL. Now, he said a lot of the right things. I think he sees the vision of what could happen. Auburn released, there was a tweet that was released that talked about Auburn and the transfer portal, especially with big men, as far as being one of the top 5 schools as far as transfer production goes, which means when Auburn brings in transfers, especially big men, they succeed. You don't have to look any further than Walker Kessler coming in, having a mediocre to below mediocre season in that system at North Carolina, comes into Auburn, and he's a first-round pick. You got Janai Broome, who's an undersized big. Let's just call it what it is. He's an undersized big for the NBA. He's come in. He's gotten better from three. His skills have gone through the roof, and he became an All-American. And he decided he wanted to come back for another year. So you look at that, and then you got guys like Chaney Johnson, Chad Baker-Mazara, that are people that nobody really even knew their names, and they've become stars. It seems like the only place Auburn's really remotely struggled a little bit and it's really not even, if you really look at it, it's only been a couple of years as that guard. So you go out and you get the best point guard that you possibly can get in JP Pegues, your number 1 point guard target, and you're going to see what happens. So with all that being said, Dylan Mitchell is saying a lot of the right things. He sees stuff like that. He knows, okay, I can go chase a check right now. And I think this was what he said. He's like, but what's that check going to mean 10 years from now? Versus going to the place where I know I'm going to be developed the best and have a better shot of making the NBA. And I think it's hard to argue with the success that Auburn's had with big men, especially the 4 and the 5 position. It's hard to argue what the success Auburn's had, especially bringing guys in from the transfer portal. So you can say a lot of the right things, and I think he has. And if you take the words he said, it sounds like it's got to be Auburn. But I mean, money talks. Let's just be honest. Money talks, and who knows who is in there could be some teams that are in a much dire situation at the 4, at the power forward position. And it may be something that he just can't turn away. I mean, you look at Duke Miles. Duke Miles was a scenario where Oklahoma had no starting point guard, and they were willing to pay almost double what we were willing to pay. Because we're trying to find a backup guy that can play a couple of different positions, maybe play 15 to 18 minutes a game. And that was okay with Duke because he knew the next year he was going to be the guy. But Oklahoma came along and had a very much higher lucrative offer that Auburn you just don't do that. You just can't do that for a person that's sort of pegged to be a backup. Now, do you reevaluate after you've seen some of the later stuff of Dillon Mitchell and say, hey, maybe this guy is starter level. Maybe this guy could be, starter level. But again, you're still selling competition with Chaney, and then Broome is going to play a little bit of 4, even if it's 8 minutes a game. We owe it to him, and I think that's something he needs to do to be able to prove himself in the NBA draft. So again, Dillon Mitchell's saying a lot of the right things, but Auburn is not just resting on that and saying, okay, we're just going to sit back. We're going to, talk to him. That's it. We're going to see what happens. And we're putting all our eggs in that basket. No, they've gone ahead and brought in another player at that position, Jaheim Hudson from SMU, 6'7", 220, to be sort of, I want to say probably more of like your fallback if Dillon Mitchell were to say, I'm going to go elsewhere. You got a guy like Jaheim Hudson who's played a lot of basketball. Not this past season, but the season before at SMU, he averaged 10 and 6, which is not a whole, or 10 and 8 actually, 10 and 6, but not much different than the stat line from Dillon Mitchell. Took a step back this year. I think SMU had some system changes, things like that, and Jaheim Hudson may not be 100% a fit there. I don't think he's going to wow you from a scoring perspective, but it's a guy that's got experience, who knows how to get boards, knows how to play at a high level. And I think he had a really big game. I'm trying to find it. He had a really big game their last in the NIT. They played Indiana State, who everybody, was everybody's darling, with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the team, the guy with the goggles, and he scored 21 points, 4 rebounds. And he's really good free throw shooter for a big guy, shoots, up towards 80%. But again, so he's shown flashes that he can score. I think he'd be a great addition as far as a backup role goes. And you only really have 1 year that you have to, and then you can kind of reevaluate after the fact. So he would only have 1 year left to play. And then, you move on from Jaheim, and you don't have to recruit. You're not having to recruit, people to come play and compete against him. You know what I mean? Because it's just one and done and you're out. So those are two big ones to watch. I know a lot of people are sort of, you have guys like Okoronkwo, who probably could have been the best out of all of them. And the whatever reason it doesn't work out, and it looks like he may have to go back to Samford. It doesn't work out. And then you bring in a guy like Dillon Mitchell, who honestly everybody kind of poo-pooed on because his stat line wasn't crazy. But then you start doing a little bit more digging, and you see some of the film from his combine workouts and things of that nature, and everybody's sort of getting excited again about a Dillon Mitchell. And then you have Jaheim Hudson that comes in, and everybody's sort of like, oh man, that's sort of a deflation over, the last two that came in. But again, you still have to look at who you have here. You still have Chaney, and you still have Broome, who's going to play some 4. So you're really, and at the end of the day, you're really still looking for a backup role. You're looking for a backup role. And if you think it's easy to just go line up, again, I said this last time, I don't want to continue to echo. If you think it's easy to just go line up a bunch of, studs that are going to sit there and be okay with just playing 15 minutes a game, I think you're sorely mistaken. And you can't go and overspend on 15 minutes a game. I mean, watch Moneyball. I mean, understand how it works. You just can't do that. So you have to really evaluate. You have to really hit and find the value. Jaheim Hudson will be a great if that's your last guy that you added and as one of the bigs in that area, man, you have a lot of options with a lot of guys that have you got some guys that have high floors. You got your Ja'Kai Howard, who's an incoming super bouncy, super athletic freshman. And you got a lot of guys with like low floors, like Jaheim Hudson. He's just going to be a steady guy who's going to go play good defense. Dylan Cardwell, guy that's going to go play really good defense, get you a lot of boards, not going to be not going to fill up the box score as from points perspective, but they're guys that can play defense the way Bruce needs to play. And then you let the guards go fill it up. Let your Denver Jones, let your JP Pegues, let your Chad Baker-Mazara, let your Tahad Pettiford, let all these guys go and fill it up, and you go crash the boards and get them the ball back and create more possessions. Again, that's all we really need to add at that position. Guard-wise, really the only name that's out there still is Dior Johnson. I think we're still doing our due diligence. And if you add him, I'll talk about why that's the case. But, again, if you add him, he's the most explosive guard that Auburn's had. He could be one of the most explosive guard Auburn's had in many, many years, very talented, got a little bit of baggage. And I think that's what they're working through right now. So we'll see what happens. Let's try not to be, look at what you have coming back. Look at what you have coming back. You have a really, really good 7 to 8 man rotation. And you really only need to add a couple more pieces just in case you get bit with an injury bug, you get in a game where you get in foul trouble and you got some depth. That's really all you're looking to add, help there, because your starting 5 is legit. And then your next 2 to 3 guys off the bench can play at a really high level too. So let's just sort of sit back. Let's see how it plays out and not be, so reactionary to every single thing that happens and so down on every single thing that happens. But other than that, man, let's see how this official visit weekend goes this weekend. I think we got a chance to possibly make some moves with some big-time prospects. I'm really hoping we make a big impression on Ausman Croma, the 4-star running back from Leesburg, Georgia. And obviously, you can't ever sleep on 5-star offensive tackles. So let's see what happens, and we'll chat about it again when it comes around next week. I really appreciate it. Another great week. Like and subscribe to this video. Comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the basketball portal. Let me know what you think about the visitors. Who's your top guy that you're looking for, not named Julian Lewis, that you want to add to this class? And we'll chat about it. I respond to pretty much every single one of them. So follow me on Twitter, _Charlie_5. I'm always easy to reach. And then we'll be back again next Tuesday. So again, I really appreciate it. This has been episode 42 of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.